So welcome to another video here on Sprues and Brews, and today we're going to be looking at the latest codex for Warhammer 40,000. It is the Grey Knights. This is up for pre-order today, along with the Thousand Suns as well. Now, whereas my Thousand Sun video, which has gone up at the same time, is more of a proper review, this one is more of a read-through. And the reason for this is Jay actually very kindly did the review of this book for the website, so you can check that one over on spruesandbrews.com. There'll be a link in the description as well. But I'm actually doing the video for this one, so I know a few of the sort of changes and stuff in here, but this is going to be more of a flick through the book, see what tasty stuff I can see literally live. So I very quickly had a quick flick through the book, but I'm almost reading this at the same time as you guys. So if you would like a bit more of a comprehensive look at the book, make sure you check out that link. Jay's done a really stunning job of reviewing it. This is his current 40k army. He's building Grey Knights, and in fact we're going to be having a game on this channel later on today, and it'll be able to watch at your own leisure as well afterwards. So keep an eye open for that. It's about 1 PM if you're watching this as the video's gone live. So the Grey Knights are back. Obviously this replaces the last Grey Knight Codex, and it also replaces their Psychic Awakening content. I've always liked the Grey Knights. They're a very elite army, demon hunters. They used to get loads of rerolls against demons. A very cool army. Some of the best looking Terminators in the game as well. Very unique, very, very cool. So like I say, I don't really know what the kind of content is in here, so this is going to be a bit more of a read through rather than a full-on review, but I do know a few of the changes, so we'll come across those as we progress through the book. As with all 9th edition codexes, the presentation is fantastic. There's some glorious artwork in here, and some fabulous lore, of which this book starts with. Like the 9th edition books we've had before this one, a lot of the lore is, you know, we kind of know already. You've got the history of Titan here, which is the planet the Grey Knights hail from. You've got stuff about the Inquisition as well. Yeah, so there is some new stuff in here, but a lot of it is stuff that we already know. A lot of the newer lore, what's going on right now in 9th edition, we're getting that in supplements. So don't expect like the full up-to-date what's going, you know, what the Grey Knights are up to in 9th edition in this, although there are some teasers and little bits of content in here for that. Talking about different Brotherhoods here. So one thing this book does introduce is different Brotherhoods, which are basically sub-factions. Games Workshop like to do this now with all armies. I've just reviewed the Thousand Suns one. They had cults introduced back in Psychic Awakening Ritual the Damned. The Grey Knights have had similar treatment, so you can choose one of the Brotherhoods and you get extra relics and stuff, but we'll come to that in a few pages time. So again, some glorious artwork. You've got Castellan Crow there, I believe that is. He's got a stunning new model that's up for pre-order within Hexfire, which is a battle box with the Grey Knights pitted against the Thousand Suns. Warzone Manask, not one that I've heard of, that one. Perhaps this is going to be another Warzone we'll see in a future supplement, like Caradron and Octarius. The Armory of Titan. So this talks about, looks like all the different weapons that the Grey Knights can get hold of. Of course, they're famous for their Nemesis weapons, their Nemesis Force weapons. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they've changed in this book. So that's the lore. You then have some really nice pages of the miniatures. They always do this to show off and showcase all the models that you can purchase. Although it's quite an older range now, it really does stand up. The Marines are slightly bigger than your traditional Marines. They're not obviously Primaris sized, but they are a lot better sort of size than the classic Marines. And as I said before, the Terminators are really unique, and they're really, really nice, considering the age of them as well. They really do stand up. And with all the different weapon options. Got a Land Raider there painted in the heraldry of the Grey Knights. They recently got access to all these flyers, like the Storm Talon. I think they've had the Storm Raven for a while. I think that was a recent addition within, it could have been Psychic Awakening or the last book, as well as the Grandmaster in Dread Knight as well. That's very cool. Speaking of the new Castellan Crow model, there he is, along with Voldus, who came out during the, it was leading into 8th, wasn't it? I can't remember what it was called. Gathering Storm? That might have been it. Double spade thread there. Find Be'lakor, of course. I mean, they are demon hunters. Who better to take out Be'lakor than the Grey Knights? I fought that guy. He is nails with my Adeptus Mechanicus. So the pages that a lot of you are going to be really keen to see are the rules. As with all 9th edition books, it details which pages you'll find which section of the rules in, such as Crusade, all your match play stuff, all your war gear and points. We're starting off with the Combat Patrol. This looks very similar to the Hexfire contents. The only differences being you've got a Librarian there instead of Castellan Crow, and you've got a unit of Strike Marines. I would expect once Hexfire is discontinued, it'll probably get replaced with this Combat Patrol box. So yeah, I'd probably look out for that in the near future. Detachment abilities. So as long as your detachment contains only Grey Knights, you unlock some special rules. So Grey Knights detachments gain the Brotherhood command ability. Sounds a bit Age of Sigmar, doesn't it? Brotherhood command, you can include a maximum of 1 Grandmaster model, makes sense, and 1 Brother Captain in each detachment of your army. So if you want 2 Grandmasters, you need to take 2 detachments. Each Grandmaster model in your army must be from a different Brotherhood. Again, makes sense fluff-wise. And the same with the Brother Captain as well. The Aegis. Each time a model in this unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll a d6 on a 5+, that wound is not lost. That's very good. Yeah, I like that. Only against a mortal wound though, but that's still pretty cool. If this unit is a Psyker, add 1 to the deny the witch test taken for this unit. Okay, so they're a little bit better at stopping powers. It's going to be an interesting matchup later on when the Grey Knights face off against my Thousand Sons, because they kind of counter each other there. The Thousand Sons get an invulnerable save, however, the Grey Knights get a feel no pain against mortal wounds, which is very, very cool. Brotherhood of Psykers, what's this say? So each Brotherhood has an associated Brotherhood Psychic power. All Grey Knights Brotherhood Psykers in the Brotherhood of Psykers detachment know the relevant Brotherhood Psychic and power in addition to any other psychic powers they know. So I think what this basically means is, I think some units can only access Hammer Hand. They don't have access to the full lore. It's really your characters that have got access to the full lore. Now, you would panic and think, well, you can only cast Hammer Hand once, surely. Apparently not, so you can have multiple units casting that same psychic power that's allowed. Okay. So we mentioned a little bit earlier on about Brotherhoods. These are your sub-factions to add a little bit more flavour to your army. So for each Brotherhood, you get a specific Brotherhood psychic power, Stratagem, and Warlord trait. So I don't know an awful lot about these ones, but you've got Sword Bearers, you've got Blades of Victory, you've got Ward Makers, Prescient Brethren, Rapiers, Preservers, Silver Blades, and Exactors. Now, the one that Jay was telling me about was called... So the Prescient Brethren, this is Jay's pick of the book. They gain a stratagem called Foresight, costs 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Psycho unit from your army is selected to shoot, or in the fight phase when a Psycho unit from your army fights. Until the end of that phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. That's very powerful. The psychic power is mental. So Fatal Precognition. It's a malediction spell with a warp charge of 5, so quite low. If manifested, select one enemy unit within 12 inches of the Psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Each time the enemy unit makes a normal move, advance, fall back, or makes a charge move, roll a d6. On a 4 or 5, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds On a 6, that enemy unit suffers 3 mortal wounds. A unit can only be selected for the psychic power once per phase. This is crazy good. So I was actually telling Jay that in the Thousand Sun one, there's a very similar psychic power to this, although it's not locked to a particular cult. But it's on a 6, and it just does 1 mortal wound. This does D3 on a 4 or a 5, and a flat 3 on a 6. That is really, really good. And it's for each... okay. Oh, actually, right. So it is slightly different. It's on the entire unit. The one in the Thousand Suns book is on a 6, but you actually roll a dice for each model in that unit. So say, for example, you've got a unit of 20 orcs. You've got 20 d6s there to potentially get 6s on and dish out mortal wounds. So they are ever so slightly different, but that's still a very, very good spell. And to wrap them up, they've got a warlord trait called Divination. If your warlord has this warlord trait, it can attempt to perform the following psychic action. Warp charge 6. In your psychic phase, this warlord can attempt to perform the psychic action. If completed, you gain a CP. Another Brotherhood that stood out to me, which I thought was quite cool, was the Rapiers. So these guys have a stratagem called Deadly Efficiency for 1 CP. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when a Rapier's unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores an additional hit. Exploding 6s are always great fun. Extra combat punch there. They've got a psychic power called Symphonic Strike. It's a blessing. Has a warp charge of 6 if manifested until the start of your next hero phase. Psychic phase, sorry. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of models in that psychic unit. Brilliant, like really good. More chances of that stratagem going off as well. And their warlord trait is called Inescapable Wrath. This warlord is eligible to declare a charge with even if they advance his turn. Not sure quite how much that'll come up, because I think you'll find your kind of warlord's going to be walking around with the rest of the units, but you might have instances where they've had to advance. It's good that they can still charge. Would also be very good on a Grandmaster in Dread Knight armor as well. So there are your Brotherhoods, extra flavour for your army. We then have these upgrades. Wisdom of the Prognosticators. I'm rubbish at pronouncing words. So these are similar to like your Space Marine Chapter Master upgrades, things like that, where you can pay power or points to gain extra abilities on your characters. Sometimes the points levels don't quite reflect the abilities, but there are some really cool abilities in here. For example, Heroism's Favor. Once per battle, at the end of your opponent's charge phase, you can select 1 friendly Grey Knight's core unit within 12 inches. That unit can perform a heroic intervention as if it was a character, which is very, very cool. Foretelling of Locus. After both players have deployed their armies, select up to 3 core units from your army and redeploy them. If the mission uses strategic reserves rules, any of those units can be placed into strategic reserves without having to spend any additional CPs, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. So that's very cool. I like that. Especially, obviously, you'd know then who's going to take the first turn. So it allows you to go defensive or aggressive, depending on if you're going first or second. You've also got your second table here of upgrades. Gem of Inoctu. Once per battle, when the bearer is selected to manifest psychic powers, you can use this gift. If you do so, though, then until the end of the phase, each time the bearer attempts to manifest a psychic power from the Dominion's discipline, you add 2 to the psychic test. Very good. There seems to be quite a bit in this book which adds to the psychic test as well, to make sure you get those key powers off. So that's very, very cool. Nice bit of artwork there as well. You've got quite a few stratagems to choose from. You of course got your stratagems where you can give extra relics to characters. You've also got a for a CP you can give a warlord trait to another character for some extra abilities. They're always worth having a look at. And then you've got some really cool stratagems that affect different elements of the game. For example, Death from the Warp for 1 CP. Basically, you can add 1 to the hit roll for a unit that's come down in Deep Strike when shooting at an enemy unit. That's really good when you pair it with one of the secondary objectives, which we'll get to in a moment, where you have to make sure you destroy a unit in the turn that you Deep Strike to gain victory points. So that's pretty cool. Final Justice, 2CP. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when a Grey Knight's character model, excluding Crow, from your army that has already not been selected to fight that phase is destroyed. Do not remove that model from play. It can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making attacks. After resolving the destroyed model's attacks, it is then removed. So it's like a final, you know, you're dead, but you get back up. You have one final attack before succumbing to your wounds. So that's really cool. Psychic Focus, 2CP. Until the end of the phase, the model gains full ability. You add 1 to Psychic Test. Again, another buff for making sure your psychic powers go off. You've got some more here. Martial Presence, 1CP. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when a Grey Knight's unit is set to defend is selected as a target of an attack made by an enemy model. Until the end of that phase, each time a modified save roll of 6 is made for the model in the unit, after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks, the attacking model suffers 1 mortal wound. So it's almost like you're punching back in defense. A bit like the Iron Fists on the Ogres for Age of Sigmar. If you're a fan of both systems, you might know what I mean. What else we got? Cyborg Ammunition's back. Cost between 1 and 2 CP depending on unit size. Unmodified hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds a target, and you improve the armor penetration characteristic of the target of the attack by 1. That's on bolt weapons fired by the Grey Knight unit that you would select. That's pretty tasty. Quite like that. Auto wounding is great. I use Vanguard at the moment for Adeptus Mechanicus. We know what that's like. They're slightly better in that they get more shots, and I think that's on a 5+ now after the FAQ. But still a very good ability. True Silver Armor is a lot like the Space Marine one, which I cannot remember the name of. But basically, use the stratagem in any phase when a core infantry unit is selected as a target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, basically you can't be wounded on anything other than a 4+. So even if you've got like a las cannon to the face, it can't wound you unless it's on a 4+. You're going to be shouting at me in the comments. I cannot remember for the life of me what the Space Marine equivalent's called, but I know it's used a lot. So yeah, that's the Grey Knight equivalent. You've then got a series of relics that you can take for the army. Some really good ones in here, quite a few offensive ones to make sure you're punching people in the face. Blade of the Forsworn, for example, is a replacement for a Nemesis Force weapon. Is +1 strength, -3 AP, and flat 3 damage. It does have a tasty ability in that if you target a demon unit, you're wounding them on a 2+ successfully, regardless of toughness. If the unit has a monster or vehicle keyword, then on an unmodified wound roll of a 4+, you're also successfully wounded them. Very good weapon. Very, very cool weapon. Curus of Sacrifice. You can put this on infantry model only, so no Dread Knights. Add 1 to armor saves from add 1 to armor saving throws made for the bearer. Each time the bearer would lose a wound, roll 1d6 and a 5+ wound is not lost. Shrugs Road's good fun. Try and keep your characters alive a bit longer. Who wouldn't want that? What else have we got? Orgarium Scrolls. Model with a Nemesis weapon only. Each time the bearer is selected to fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll and 1 wound roll when resolving the bearer's attacks. Free rerolls. Love free rerolls. I'll take those all day long. So, some really cool selection of relics there. Remember, you can always spend a CP to dish an extra one out to another character should you want. You have got 2 disciplines to choose from. Your characters can choose from any of these, whereas there are some limitations in that your Strike Force units, your Terminator units, they can only take Hammer Hand. You can't take anything else. Hammer Hand is, I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same as it was before. It has a Warp Charge of 5, and it basically allows you to re-roll your wound rolls with in melee, which is very strong, so you want to be using that as often as you can. Astral Aim has changed, so it's a Warp Charge of 6, it's a blessing. Each time the Psyker's unit is selected to shoot, you can re-roll 1 hit roll when resolving that unit's attacks. Each time a model in the Psyker's unit makes a range attack, the target does not receive the benefits of cover. Pretty sure that used to ignore a line of sight, was very powerful. Still good, but it would have been better if you could still ignore line of sight. What have we got over on this side? Sanctuary's back till the end of until the start of your next psychic phase. The model that you use that spell on gains a 4+ invulnerable save. Gate of Infinity is your teleportation. So basically, you can pick a unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, remove the unit from the battlefield, and set it back up on the battlefield anywhere outside of 9 of enemy models. Warp Shaping allows you to change your tide. So we're going to come to tides a little bit later on in the book. You pick a tide at the start of the battle, and the only way to change it is by using that psychic power. But again, we'll get to tide shortly. So yeah, some cool psychic powers there. You can, of course, take Grey Knight Chaplains. They get their own litanies, just like any normal chaplain, really. I think they go off on a 3+, I think. It could be a 4, actually. So what have we got here? Invocation of Focus is an aura. If it's inspiring, while a friendly core or character unit is within 6 inches of the priest, each time that unit attempts to manifest a blessing, add 1 to the psychic test. Another buff to psychic test, which is great. Litany of Explosion aura. If this litany is inspiring, then while the friendly core or character unit is within 6 inches of the priest, each time modeling that unit makes a melee attack, you can re-roll a hit roll. Oof, that's good, especially for Grey Knights. Get a lot of attacks. 6 Warlord traits up for grabs. Your named characters are down here and which ones they have to take. For example, Drago has to take this one, Demon Slayer. Each time the Warlord fights, if it made a charge move, you add an extra attack. If you're fighting a demon, the demon does not get an invulnerable save. So you almost want to be charging him into Bloodthirsters, Lord of Changes, the big bad chaos characters. Nemesis Lord. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack with a Nemesis weapon, an unmodified hit of a 6 automatically wounds. That's pretty good. Psychic Epitome. At the start of each of your psychic phases, select 1 friendly psychic within 6 inches until the end of that phase. Each time that unit manifests a Witchfire psychic power, when resolving that psychic power, if an enemy unit suffers any mortal wounds, they take an additional mortal wound. Could be good with, like, because a lot of them are like D3. Having D3 plus 1 is a little bit more reliable. So yeah, really cool. But obviously remember that some of your named characters are locked in. Jay's already pre-warned me that the secondaries aren't great. I mentioned earlier about about a stratagem that made you +1 to hit in the shooting phase if you come down by deep strike. That works well with the teleport assault secondary. Basically, your unit deep strikes, it has to destroy a unit to gain 3 victory points. The problem with secondaries like that is you only get to deep strike once with that unit. If you fail it, there's no other way of, unless you've got more units in reserve, you've got no other way of capturing that secondary objective, which is a shame. The Destroy the Demon purely works on demons, that's it. So unless you're fighting demons, then you cannot use that secondary. You just wouldn't get any points for it. However, it is very good if you're fighting demons. It's a no-brainer. And finally, you've got this one, Purifying Ritual, where you purify a objective. The problem with this one is a lot of your units, characters side, can only cast 1 psychic power. So do you really want to give up that psychic power for a psychic action? The points do build up as you capture objectives, so it could be worth it, but you're already quite an elite army and you probably want to be using those psychic powers to cast Hammer Hand to get those re-roll of wound rolls. But the option's there. But I can see what Jay means, that quite a disappointing selection of secondary objectives there. You might want to carry on taking them from the core rules and the battle packs. You've got a handy name generator there as well. Moving on to Crusade, which is my favourite element of 9th edition. Probably played more of Crusade than any other type of 40k game recently, even match play. You've got agendas, which you can take, which are all very fluffy for the Grey Knights to give your units extra experience. So that's really cool. Just move that out of the way. You've got your requisitions, so once you've got those requisition points, you can spend them on stuff such as Deeds of Legend. For one requisition point, you can gain 1 additional battle honor on your character, further buffering them up. One of two mechanics for Grey Knights in Crusade is on a title, so your Grandmaster can achieve a title for himself, which gives him an extra ability. Some really nice ones here. If we take, for example, Warden of the Liberius, Grandmaster only. If the Grandmaster is part of your Crusade force, then the Psychic Meditation's Requisition costs 0 Requisition points if the unit selected is a Psychic unit. So that's really cool. What else we got? Keeper of the Orgrium. So this is Jay's favourite Brotherhood. If this Grandmaster is part of your Crusade army and you are the attacker, you gain 2 additional command points. Command points always come in handy. So it's actually worth noting, actually, that each of these are locked to one of the Brotherhoods. So you really need to choose one of the Brotherhoods to get one of these. Voldus can get one, though, apparently. If Voldus is included in your Crusade force, he automatically gains a Warden of the Liberius Honoured title, even though known characters don't normally get them. You've got a series of relics. I'm not going to go into too much detail about those, but they're able to be unlocked during your Crusade, along with battle traits and psychic fortitudes. But then you come to the really cool part of the Crusading with Grey Knights, the demonic Nemesis. In short, this allows you to create a Nemesis. So, for example, we're having a battle later on. I think Jay's tempted to create a Herald of Tzeentch Nemesis. There are rules here to basically give them to my army for free to use. So the chance you might turn up to help the Thousand Sons, and Jay's job is to banish him. Now, if your opponent army contains a Nemesis unit, they have the following agenda in addition to any others. So I'll get an extra agenda here, which basically gains me extra points if that Nemesis survives. So I don't want to throw him away. If I've got a Herald of Tzeentch to use, I don't want to throw him away. He's not guaranteed to appear when you're fighting. So if we read down here, to determine whether the Nemesis is present, roll 1d6, adding 1 to the result of if your opponent's army contains any units with the Chaos Demon faction keyword. On a 5+, the Nemesis unit is added to your opponent's army for the whole battle, which is ace. I really like that. I really like narrative-driven content such as that. That's really, really cool. Really, really like that. I wish all codexes had some kind of narrative element such as that. I know I've just reviewed the Thousand Sons. They've got the chance to aim to acquire points to unlock Crusade relics and psychic powers, but there's no real narrative driven content such as this, which I really, really wish it had done. So that was my only one of my only criticisms of the Thousand Sons book, but really good here in the Grey Knights as an example of what a Crusade army could look like. And so we're getting towards the end of the book now. We're looking at data sheets. Bolt Discipline still affects Grey Knights, so your rapid firing weapons, if your units have stood still or if they're Terminators, which is really fun. They still get and they shall know no fear. Concealed Combat Squad, and obviously you've got the rules there for teleport striking your Terminators. The key point here is if your army is completely Grey Knights, aside from unaligned units, then you get the Tides of the Master of the Warp ability, which is your different tides. So you choose one of these at the beginning of the battle, and that's in play until you change it using the Warp Shaping psychic power. These have various effects in different phases of the game. So, for example, the Tide of Convergence, you add 6 inches to the range characteristic of psi weapons that models this unit are equipped with, and each time a model this unit makes a melee attack with a Nemesis weapon, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 at the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. So what Jay has said is one of the real strengths of this book is that it loves synergy. So there are going to be times where you're going to want to time your tide right with a stratagem, with a unit, to do maximum damage. I can't remember which one it is. I'm sure it's in his written review. He mentions as a way of doing 12 mortal wounds. But obviously it takes a bit of play and planning to manage to pull it off, because you need to be in a certain tide, you need to have a certain unit there, and use a certain stratagem. So there are lots of synergies in this army that you could potentially pull off. So yeah, the tides are really cool. They're a mechanic that I think came in and during Taki Awakening. I don't think it was in the last book, but I could be wrong. I do apologise, Grey Knight fans, if I am. But they are back, and they are good. I'm not going to go through all of the data sheets. However, what I will say is it's pretty much extra attacks for everybody. I think a couple of extra attacks in certain places as well. We've also got a couple of extra wounds dotted about here and there. All your key characters can still cast 2 psychic powers, but your Grandmaster can only do 1. And that's really the tale of the data sheets. Everybody only gets 1, apart from the couple of key characters. So your Grandmaster and Dread Knight Armor can only cast 1. Crow can only cast 1. It's such a nice new model. It's a shame he can only cast 1 because he's got his Purifying Flame from the Santic Discipline because he's a Purifier. There is a stratagem to allow one of your psychics to cast an additional psychic power in the phase, but you can only use that once, so you've got to be careful of who you're going to use that on. One other thing I will mention is on the Terminators and the Strike Squad, there's nothing in this book that suggests that their smite isn't a normal smite. So what I mean by that is previously the psychers in these units could only do 1 mortal wound on a normal smite, and on a super smite they did D3. Now I think they're back to the D3 damage normally, D6 if it's a super smite. They do still, however, improve in difficulty the more times you cast smite, so the warp charge value will go up the more times you try and cast it. Okay, so also worth mentioning, your Terminators have got an extra wound, so have your Strike Squads, your normal Marines. We expected that, they needed that, that's really cool. Ancient Apothecary, your Paladins, your Purifiers, your Servitors. I don't know who uses those in the Grey Knight army, but they are there if you want them. Your Dreadnoughts, there's no new data sheets in here, so no new tanks that the Space Marines have recently been getting. Obviously no Primaris. I don't know where they'll go with that in regards to the Grey Knights in the future. Your Rhino Razorback, Interceptors, and Storm Ravens. And then to finish off the book, you've got your weapon profiles for quick reference. A bit of a preview there, what they look like. A breakdown of each of your specialised weapons, Nemesis, Sire weapons, flame weapons, bolt weapons. And of course, you've also got all your points costs. And you've got a glossary and reference to have a quick flick through as well mid-game. And that wraps up the Grey Knight Codex. So my apologies that was more of a sort of a flick through, a read through rather than a review. Jay has done a very good job on his written review over on spruesandbrews.com. Again, the link is in the description, so you can go and check that out at your leisure. He's really gone to town on it because Grey Knights are his current army. He can't wait to play against my Thousand Sons later on today, which will be streamed live on YouTube and Twitch. If you don't get to watch it, I think it's going to be about 1 p.m. Today. If you're watching this kind of early in the morning once the video's gone live, you'll be able to watch it back at your leisure once the battle's finished over on YouTube. So you won't get to miss out. I really like the book. I don't think it's a beginner friendly book. I think there's a lot of synergies that you need to get your head around. I think we need to see this book in action. I think it's hard to judge what it's going to be like on the battlefield until we start seeing some games, start seeing tournament players get hold of this book, and see what they can do with it. But nothing jumps out to me as being too overpowered or not fun to play against. They're still a very elite army. You're never going to have to face against many Grey Knights, but the Grey Knights that you do face have a lot of attacks. They're difficult to take down, and they punch really hard. So yeah, that wraps up the Grey Knights. Make sure you check out that written review. We've got lots of exciting content coming to YouTube and spruesandbrews.com. Already up today as well, in fact, is my written and video review of the Thousand Sons Codex, which is also up for pre-order today, so make sure you check that out. Thanks for watching this video. Our thanks to Games Workshop for providing this copy of the book for us to review. That's very much appreciated. And make sure you get your pre-order in today. Why not pre-order through our Element Games link over on the website? Help support us and also net yourself a cheeky little discount as well. Until our next video, have a great time hobbying, and we'll speak to you all again very soon. Bye!